Peace, peace. Greetings to you all. It's your brother Naheem, BKA Lord Abba, aka Mr. Just the Facts family. Make sure y'all hit the like button. BTP is in the building. We got brother Ali. He's locked and loaded and ready to go tonight. We got our brother Dr. Logic Supreme. He's ready to go tonight. The Freedmen are on deck. Make sure y'all hit that like button. If you are not subscribed to the channel, hit that, hit that subscribe button. Hit that little bell icon next to the subscribe button so you can become a part of the notification nation and get notifications every time Be the Power goes live or uploads new content. Shout out to all my peoples in the chat. Sister Riri BTP Riri is in the building. Nagu 12. Who else we got in there? Sister Antonia Edwards, pieces. Peace to our brother from Detroit, Gerard Ibn Lamont. Jaron 215. Sister XX, Sister Fate XX. We got the fam in the building. Make sure y'all hit that like button. If you would like to support our platform, you can use the Cash App $, Be the Power, $ Be the Power. You can use the super chat. You can use the PayPal link. You can go to the website, usadof.org. Also go to our website, bethepower.org. Learn our 12-point program. Let that thing marinate in your mind so you know. Sister Kim Witcher is in the building. Sister April, brother Dre. Peace to the family. Let's get this thing going. Okay, so tonight we're gonna be talking about this theme that is starting to develop among, the detractors. There's gonna always be detractors, right? And this theme is that we are somehow appropriating the name freedom. We shouldn't use it. It belongs to some other people. Somehow, because we're using this name Freedman, that it may be interfering with those who are using the name Freedman. Because, well, we can't have anything. Anything we try to come up with, there's somebody there trying to knock it down. But we found the one thing that can't be knocked down, but people are going to still try anyway. It's like throwing a bowling ball at a building, thinking that the building is going to fall because you could knock a few pins down in the bowling alley.
Let me speak to your point before you keep going. Let me just speak, because you made a really valid, excellent point in that everything that we come up with, someone's going to have a problem with it. So think, right? What happened when they came out with the hashtag? They got into arguments with Cobra and Narc about how that was inaccurate. That's inaccurate. You can't be a descendant of slavery, right? Remember all of the arguments online between Cobra and Narc, and how Cobra kept trying to tell these people that they could not be descendants of slavery. And it was a problem. It was wrong. FBA. You got people who argue against FBA. You understand what I'm saying? Not as many, right? Because it's actually it's a more accurate term than ADOS. But the fact of the matter is, you have people who were against that terminology. You got people against Freedmen, right? For a really crazy reason, which we're going to get into. But as you know, just to your point, anything you come up with, somebody's going to have a problem with it.
Facts. And this has been a part of our plight here in the United States of America. We are supposed to be at the bottom. We are never, ever supposed to have anything belonging to us. Nothing. Anything that we own, it's supposed to be somebody else's. We create hip hop. Oh, y'all didn't create that. The Jamaicans created hip hop. This term Freedman, the original Freedman. That y'all just trying to appropriate that. Y'all are not the Freedmen. The real Freedmen are the black freedmen of the 5 slaveholding tribes. Peace, Sister Shayna McGee. I'm gonna pull your tweet up when we
Yo,
get into the
do we have an example of that?
Clyburn portion.
Do we have
Yeah,
an
go ahead,
example
bro.
of that? Do we have an example of that, or are we just making stuff up?
Oh, we have
Do
plenty of
people
examples.
actually say that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Mm,
People just say a bunch of crazy
yeah,
stuff.
let's see if people are saying that in like
All right, so
real time.
this is what we gonna do. This is what we gonna do.
Mm.
We gonna share this. And Ali, I don't know if you have them pulled up outside of the inbox.
No, I don't.
All right.
But I
All
can.
right.
I'll do it.
So here's this guy. I am DOAS. Because they remember what I said last night. And I'm gonna put that video back up. We was trying to trim some stuff out and it just didn't seem to work. But we putting that video back up. We just gonna do it the trimming another way. So this guy says Freedmen is already in use by those who are seeking justice from the 5 civilized Indian tribes. Stop appropriating the moniker for their cause and create your own. So this person doesn't think that, oh, and I meant to send the email of the video to this sister. We're going to bring her up as well. This person doesn't think that we just was studying the information. Oh, that's a funny picture. We was just studying the
Conor
information.
McGregor, the Hebrew Israelite.
That we was just studying the information. And, we just came up with this thing on our own, but we didn't do that. We just said, oh, they're using Freeman. Let us take Freeman and use it for ourselves. Crazy. It's just crazy. So, I mean, y'all, let me pull up a couple more. We can. Let me
All
see.
right.
Yeah, let's talk about that, right? That let's focus on that one. Can you pull the tweet back up for me? Let's pull the tweet back up.
I got you. Hold on 1 second.
And then this is a problem, right? This dude was responding to a tweet I put out earlier, actually, right? And so we have a serious, like, understanding problem in this movement. Like, so we pull this tweet up, and this man says Freedman is already in use by those who are seeking justice from the 5 civilized Indian tribes. Stop appropriating the moniker for their cause and create your own. Now let's talk about that entire mindset. Like, this screams ignorance. Like, this is ignorance of the highest order, unparalleled ignorance, right? And I don't know this person's background, but just looking at his icon, not icon, but the avatar, right? I would say, like, maybe he probably a freedman too, right? Maybe. I'm gonna give him the benefit of a doubt. And so he doesn't even understand what the problem is with this. I don't know if he does or not. If he does, and he's just like purposeful, like sabotage, and he's like an enemy of the cause of uplifting the freedmen. But it says freedmen is already in use. What does that matter? What does that matter? What's already in use? That right there is already crazy, right? He's not looking at this thing right. The 5 civilized tribes. So if you can't go in depth and tell me how the 5 civilized tribes got freedman status incorporated into their government history, then you don't need to tell you need to shut up, right?
Right. Hey, Logic, before you
Mhm.
keep going, isn't descendant of slaves already in use? like, I mean, isn't that
I-
terminology like old terminology? Like, weren't people already using that?
In
right,
several
right,
different ways.
right. And so, but the problem with this right here, though, right, is that he wants to take a legacy rooted in our ancestors' work and not understanding the history of that and say that when we invoke it, we're appropriating the freedmen of the 5 civilized tribes' plight. So now we have to go into that for a second in this segment and really break
Yes,
that down.
yeah, yes,
What's
indeed.
really going on here? First and
Yeah.
foremost, let's understand this freedmen thing from a historical standpoint. Now I'm gonna do a favor. I'm gonna pull something up too, man. let me pull some stuff up, right? Because people don't study enough. Like when we first got into this movement, right? People said, y'all need to study, study, study. That was the most popular phrase. Study, study, study. Right. And so I'm gonna have to echo that. Study, 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 man. Before you jump out here with, we're gonna show how ignorant this is. This is just people saying anything in social spaces, right? Now check it out. The freedman status, being a federal status attached to emancipation and liberation from the abominable institution of slavery, starts with our people, the Americans, right? If you just have basic understanding of government, you can understand what's going on here. And so the government by states started abolishing slavery, like state abolition preceded federal abolition, like most major laws and societal changes do in a federalist government, right? It starts
Facts.
statewide. And so you have state abolition. So I found the earliest one that I know is in like 1827 when New York abolished slavery and they had a Freedmen Society of New York. Google it. I'm not going to do all the work for you. Logic got the information. I got it saved in my favorites. I can go straight to it and look at it, but see if we're lying, right? And vet us, right? Check it out. Freedmen of New York. Go look at that history. You understand? Now check it out. So it started state by state, but federally recognized. So the federal government creating a category of specific families, citizens in America, and giving them the status of freedmen federally starts with the Emancipation Proclamation, right? And what does that status come with? That status comes with policies and protections. And we see that all throughout this freedmen history. The first group of freedmen to be federally recognized as such were our family members who were citizens of the United States. The Indians of the 5 so-called civilized tribes existed outside of the United States.
Outside.
So
Facts.
we have a situation where me and Ali and Abba, we're all brothers, right? Let's say we're all brothers, right? I get sold to some slaveholders, European slaveholders, Americans, right? In Georgia. Ali gets sold to some in Virginia. Abba just so happens to be sold to another nation, right? He gets sold to, let's say, the Creek, not the Creek, but let's say the Cherokees, the most famous, right? He gets sold to the Cherokees, but we all blood brothers, right? And then, so we all get bred out, we all have children, right? Now, Civil War happens, Emancipation Proclamation happens. Me and Ali become freedmen upon the executive order of President Lincoln, outlawing
American freedmen.
American freedmen, right? This is in America. America is a political unit. It's a body politic. So the executive order of a president who is the chief executive officer of that government only has authority in that government to make executive orders, right? That's his jurisdiction. So when he makes the Emancipation Proclamation, he's not talking to governments outside of the United States. And we go look up the Emancipation Proclamation, and he's telling you exactly what he's talking about. And so he's talking about those Negro slaves from Africa. See, they tie everything together. They call them Negro slaves, and they say descendants of Africa, right? They're letting you know we're not talking about no goddamn indigenous people here. We know where they came from because we got the slave logs, we got the manifest, we got the sale receipts, we got all of that. We know because that's how these people in a capitalist society take good records and do good accounting of things that make them money. So we know what's going on here. And so now we all have children a couple generations past, right? Naheem got children, Ali got children, I got children. We all cousins, right? But we get freedman status, right? Different ways. So now we move up and the federal status gets cemented across the union, right? And now we have the real power to enforce it. So the executive head, Abraham Lincoln, did it by executive order, but that's like the weaker part of the it's not, doesn't make it constitutional at this time, right? But it makes it a thing. And so the legislature legislates the 13th Amendment, right? Passes it and now abolishes slavery in all the states in the Union, right? So that gives freedman status to everybody who was a victim of one citizen enslaving another citizen and holding them in private bondage. That abolishes that federally. Like you can't do it. Like they left it up to the states to decide what can and can be and not be done in the states. Then the federal government said, y'all not doing that. You understand? That's over. They're free. They're freed from that institution, right? So now you get the freedmen federally secured. Now they can go anywhere in the state and have that freedman status, where some just had it in the states where the states abolished slavery. So now we get to 1866. Now because during this time, let me go back before we go to 1866. During this time of the Emancipation Proclamation, the 5 so-called civilized tribes are deeply embedded and entrenched with the Confederate States of America, who have waged war on the Union and are hell-bent on destroying the United States of America. The 5 civilized tribes are fighting with them. You understand? Holding our cousins. Now we're all cousins because like our parents were brothers. They had children. We're all cousins. Holding our cousins in bondage, private bondage in their governments, the Cherokee government, the Choctaw government, the Creek, so on and so forth, right? They're holding them in private bondage in those governments. And so now we have freedmen status, but they do not, because they're not in our government. This government allowed our brothers and sisters to be sold to other governments while they were settling the new world, so to speak, right? And so, but now we move forward. We're freedmen already. We fought in the Civil War, killed, bled, and died to liberate our brothers and sisters in the South by the millions. We did that. We fought by the hundreds of thousands to free millions of our family members in the South. And we made this freedmen thing. It was nothing but African-American, Black, Negro freedmen, non-indigenous, right, lineage families who met with General Sherman when Special Field Order 15 was negotiated and eventually issued. There was no Indians. There were no Creeks there. Because if they were there, they would have been in battle because it was wartime. You understand? They couldn't have been there. It would have been a violent interaction. And there was no treaties made when Special Field Order 15 was being negotiated and eventually issued, right? So there were no Creeks at that time. There was freedmen that met with him who are American freedmen, and they created Special Field Order 15, right? And so after the passing of the Civil Rights Act of 1866, now the government has ended the Civil War, put to bed the institution of slavery, passed the 13th Amendment. The 14th Amendment and the 15th Amendment already get passed, right? Before we even start negotiating freedmen status in the governments of the so-called 5 civilized tribes. What are the 5 civilized tribes doing at that time during 65 to 66, right? They're still holding slaves. And even well after the mandate comes down that I'm going to talk about, they still held slaves, right? They fought with the Confederacy. And after the Confederacy ultimately capitulated in military defeat and surrendered at Appomattox, right? The Indians were still fighting. And so it wasn't until 1866 when the United States finally put enough pressure on the 5 civilized tribes and caused them to come to treaty. And so they come to treaty, and they use the same legislative language that the freedmen made a reality in the American government, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, right? They combined that language and mandated and said, if you want peace with the United States government, you're going to have to end slavery in your governments. Not only that, you're going to have to guarantee them full membership status, just like we were guaranteed full citizenship status in America. He made them give them full membership status in those 5 civilized tribes, right? They mandated, in order to get peace, this is what you got to do. And so so we already had been declared free since 1863, and we had that freedman status federally. Even if we couldn't live it out because of the result of the war, the status was still federally executed at that time. And now, so we had that. Now it's 1866. We already had been freedmen since 63, 3 years before that. Our cousins are finally getting that status. And now we move forward to now. With the lack of study and the lack of history, you got our cousins arguing with us saying we're appropriating their history because so much has been lost, so much has gone ignorant of the knowledge of, right? Now we look at them as not even being of the same situation, not even knowing that our relationship is that we have the freedman status before you. And if it was not for us fighting, killing, and dying, you wouldn't have no freedman status. You understand? And so you're only a freedman because we won the war in America. We did that. We won freedman status here in America. And those policies and protections were a product of our work. Y'all didn't defeat the Cherokees. We defeated them. Y'all didn't defeat the Creeks and the Seminole and send them running. We did that. Fighting in the Navy, fighting in the Union. We did that and gave y'all. We not only did we liberate our millions of family members in the South, we liberated all of y'all in the so-called civilized tribes. And you owe us honor and respect. And we can't allow the ignorance to prevail any longer. This is too important for all of that, right? Indian freedmen are only freedmen because of American freedmen. And they need to understand that. And we're going to get into it. I'm gonna pull up later after I'm gonna pass the mic. I know I've been talking, right? I'm gonna pull up one of the oldest freedmen bills ever legislated in the history of congressional legislation. And we're gonna see who they talking about.
Indeed, indeed. So, Brother Ali, let's pull up this other screenshot and then
All right.
let's start breaking
Break
this
down
thing
some of what
down.
that was. You got it?
Yeah, it was your
All right.
response to.
Yeah.
let's pull this up.
Have a look at it, see what kind of silliness is going on here. All right, so look, this was a tweet that I had made to try. I put it out specifically to try to clarify what's actually going on, because we trying to head some of this off at the pass, but it's not necessarily working with certain people. So I put up this tweet. It says, FYI, there are different groups of freedmen via the 1866 Indian treaties. There are Cherokee freedmen, Creek freedmen, Choctaw freedmen, etc. But the American freedmen are the first and largest group of freedmen who were officially being made since 1861. And we can explain that. We go on and start talking about the beginning of the war and the confiscation acts, etc. Were officially being made since 1861 and were 4 millions by 1865 with the 13th Amendment. So he says, this guy, and this particular person call himself Fubu or Chipatosala or whatever, Chipatolosala or whatever. He considers himself a Cherokee and Creek person, freedman, or something of that nature. He says, except freedmen from Indian territory have continuously used the term freedmen for those enslaved and our descendants since 1866, while black folks from the United States, see, he's already separating himself, right? You see how he's doing that. Y'all are black folks, we're freedmen, right? Black folks from the United States have not until the ADOS movement and Seminole freedmen. This is where he tries to say Seminole freedmen were free long before the 1860s. So if you go to the next tweet, we kind of continue this dialogue. And what he's referencing, people, is something that is considered the precursor to the Emancipation Proclamation, called General Jessup's, Jessup, General Jessup's proclamation, which was issued during the time of the Seminole Wars between the United States and the so-called Seminole Indians in Florida. One of the things that comes up about that is that during that time, there were a lot of quote unquote Negroes who were living amongst the Seminoles. Some of them were slaves, some were free. And these Negroes were a formidable opponent against the United States. And so what General Jessup decided to do in this instance, because what they deemed it was a Negro war. You can look this up. They said the war against the Seminoles was in fact a Negro war, not an Indian war. This was the specific language that Jessup used in his correspondence to the United States Congress. This was a Negro war and not an Indian war, because the Negroes were really the ones leading the charge in the Seminole War. And so what he decided to do was try to separate the Negroes in the Seminole group from the Indians, because he said the Negroes are so strong. If we can't separate them from the Indians and their allegiance to the Indians, we're never going to get through this battle. This thing is going to continue going on and on. And so what he tried to do was issue this proclamation. Um, I forget the year because I'm really going off the top. You all can look it up. General Jessup's proclamation or promise of freedom. You look it up and y'all see the dates. In the 1800s, around 1830, circa 1830, 35, somewhere in there. And so what he tried to do was issue this proclamation saying that if the Negro slaves of the Seminole Nation would separate themselves from the Indians, they would guarantee them freedom. Here's the thing, though. What I said to this guy is this, because he brings it up. He says Jessup's proclamation that ended the fugitive status of escaped enslaved people, and he's bringing up fugitive because I mentioned fugitive in a previous tweet about the people who escaped from United States slavery and ran up to the Seminole Indians for protection. Right? This is what some of the American blacks were doing, was running from slavery and going to Florida to live amongst the Seminoles for the purpose of protection, right? They had a place in Florida called Negro Fort. You guys can look that up and everything. And so the fact is, what this General Jessup was trying to do was separate the Negroes, who were very strong fighters, not the Indians. The Negroes were the strong fighters who were giving the United States problem. And he was trying to say to them that though they had an enslaved population, if you guys separate from the Seminole Indians, we will free you. We will guarantee your freedom and your autonomy, etc., etc. So this is what he says. I said, well, before that, right, if we're just going based off of emancipation, so before that 1830 whatever proclamation you had 1781s. Now brother Logic just mentioned the emancipation or the abolishing of slavery in northern states and how that began to happen in the northern New England states, etc., before it started to happen before it happened as a nation or federal thing with the 13th Amendment. So in 1781 in Massachusetts, we brought this up a number of times already for those who pay attention to our shows. There was a woman by the name of Elizabeth Freeman in Massachusetts who brought one of what was known in history as the freedom suits, right? There are a number of freedom suits throughout history. And she brought one in 1780 or 81. She won her suit in Massachusetts, and right behind her came another quote unquote African American. Neither one of these people were enslaved by Indians, they were enslaved by so called white people. A man by the name of Kwaku Walker, you can look him up, who also filed a freedom suit in Massachusetts and won his suit right behind Elizabeth Freeman, also known as Mum Bet. Her nickname was Mum Bet, Bet being short for Elizabeth. Mum Bet won her freedom in 1781, and her case, along with Quack Walker's case, helped to bring about the abolition of slavery in the state of Massachusetts because the courts of Massachusetts ruled that slavery was inconsistent with the 1780 Constitution of the state. So if we're just talking emancipation and the abolishing of slavery on the state level, right, you already had quote unquote freedmen being made in Massachusetts since 1781. So
That's right.
again, you're not going to win that argument.
You
So what
can't
else did we
win.
what else did we say? Before that, I said before that, 1781 Massachusetts, an enslaved American black woman named Mum Bet filed a freedom suit and won. Slavery ended there in 1783, due in part to her suit. BTP has previously spoken on this, so I don't think you understand what the freedman status is and came with, which is what Brother Logic was talking about. Freedman status also comes with certain protections and guarantees, particularly from a state, right? The United States in international law is a state. The state of Massachusetts is a state. So in the state of Massachusetts, not only were these people now made freedmen and women, but they also became members of the society. So the disabilities that existed for an enslaved person become removed. So now these people actually become members of society that can access certain things, which is why when the Dred Scott case happened, people in the northern states couldn't understand what they were trying to say, because they like, these people have been members of our states and interacting and voting
That's
and
right.
doing things for a long time, obviously since 1783 in the state of Massachusetts. So that's the point that we're trying to make, is that the freedman status comes with certain protections from the state, whether it's the state on the sub level or the United States on the national level. That's what we're talking about. So basically, that's pretty much it. He tried to go on to say that the Seminoles, because he then tried to switch the argument and say the Seminoles were using. Put the tweet back up real quick. I just wanted people to see this about the ethnicity, because I know certain people try to use that as an argument as well. I want to deal with that real quick. Let them see what we told him. So he goes on and says, I understand that the freedman was a status of formerly enslaved people, but you're also talking about ethnic groups, and Seminole freedmen as an ethnic group were freedmen long before slavery ended in the United States. So I said to him, I'm not talking about ethnicity. I stated that previously. However, I am referring to the status of freedmen that was conferred upon Negroes enslaved in the United States, enslaved under the United States government, and those enslaved by Indians via 1866 treaties with the United States government and made United States citizens. What I didn't catch on here was the comment that I said to him, that these Seminole people were not using freedmen as an ethnicity
That's right.
before slavery ended, because ethnicity is a term that didn't come into use in the United States until like 1920 something. So that's not true. They were not using that as an ethnic term. Those people use the names of their indigenous names for whatever it is that when they were referring to themselves. If Chickasaw was their name, that's the name they use. They didn't use freedmen as no ethnic term. So this dude tried to lie and move the goalpost because he knew he couldn't win that argument from arguing the issue of status. So he tried to change it to ethnicity. False.
Great scholarship, brother. Great scholarship. First and foremost, freedmen nor Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, Seminole, none of those are ethnicities, right? Excuse me. And like he said, ethnicity wasn't even a term used in that time. Ethnicity wasn't even a concept or that was being recorded by our government or even being used. I don't even know if those nations even had a concept of ethnicity or anything like that, right? They wasn't using that. So how could one's ethnicity be freedmen? That makes no sense. Just look how stupid these assertions are. How can a freedman is something that happened. It's describing something, right? Freedman is descriptive, and it's a category of people that fits that description. Freedman, what are you freed from? How can that be your ethnicity? Ethnicities is a product or a byproduct of that extends through lineage, right? You get it. You inherit that from bloodline, not through happenstance or circumstance. You know what I'm saying? So freedman is something that you get through happenstance and circumstances, right? Not your ethnicity. Everybody got, like, y'all have this thing so confused, and it's like they're purposefully trying to figure out weird ways to make things that, like, in normal conditions would make absolutely no sense. Y'all see, and a lot of y'all, it clicks. Y'all like, yo, this makes sense. And then somebody come and says some crazy shit like that, and you start second guessing it. It's very problematic. And now, if Ibrahim got something, and then I want to share something after that.
Yeah, some things you can give away, and some things you can't. You can't give away your lineage. They're having a conversation, right? And they're basically saying, like, being freedman or being black is a subset to being on the Indian reservation, which makes you a Native American. that's not how race was, and that's not how the Freedmen classification worked. And what I mean, like, this is basically a straight hair versus a kinky hair conversation. And you're taking it to the extreme, and you're saying, hey, if you grew up on a reservation, if you was enslaved by the Native Americans, you know, somehow you're Native American, and you're a different type of black, and you have a different type of lineage, even though you gave the example of a family who was just split up and sold. My thing is, everybody that's in this space, right? The end goal that we want to get is reparations. How do you achieve that end goal if you chop off your lineage? Like, how do we give all of that history away of the Freedmen Bank and of all of the work that Frederick Douglass did and all of the freedmen, right? How do we give that away, give ourselves a new name, but then try to like circumvent some type of anchor back to that history without carrying that name over? You can't give that to the Native Americans, because if you give that to the Native Americans, you give them all that leverage as far as them advocating on lineage and on reparations, and you basically cut yourself out, and then you try to build something else. It's like, the way I'm explaining it is just all over the place, because that type of mind state, that type of ideology is all over the place. You basically cutting out the middle and then trying to loop yourself back to it, but with a different name, something that's not even acknowledged by the government that you fall up under. It's as strange as somebody calling themselves Cabinet agent, right? But at least the person who called himself Cabinet agent wasn't advocating for reparations for the atrocities that happened to his people, right? At least the Cabinet agent person grew up upper middle class, right? It's even more weird when you're not an outlier, when you come from the downtrodden, when you're affected by these traumatic experiences. But you say, I'm not them and they not me. The Native Americans don't have claim to the Freedmen legacy and name entirely. They are a part of a greater thing, you know. So like, it's a you know, you have the pretendians, and then you have people that say, hey, we're not this, we're that, we're Moors, we're Moroccans, we're, you know what I'm saying? And you just got people all over the place, and they're not claiming who they actually are. They're not claiming their tribe. They're just grabbing something out of thin air, you know. And it does an injustice on how humanity was broken up into tribes and how we became something different even after that, once we came over on the slave ship. You can't annex yourself from your lineage and then try to fight for that same lineage later on in a different name. You know, like, you have to take all of that culminates into this reparations conversation. And you have a right to use your last name, even if somebody else changes it. And you know, like Malcolm X says, like, I'm not using the Malcolm Little last name. But he could never disassociate himself from his mother, from his father, from his brother. So even though he went by Malcolm X and later on Malik El-Shabazz, he was still connected to Malcolm Little, right? No matter what you still call yourself, you still connected to Freedman, and Freedman is still connected to that legacy of slavery, and that all connects us to this history that we're advocating to be repaired for.
That's
and I'll
right.
just end on that note.
That's right. All right. So
just to highlight something he said real quick, right? Because I see it and I know y'all see it, and it's happening all the time. He said that they try to use the narrative, right? The justice story of our people who were recognized in that time. Put yourself in that time. Everybody in the newspapers, everybody in all of media is calling our group Freedmen, right? They're saying this is what's happening to the Freedmen, the Freedmen, the Freedmen, the Freedmen. The whole entire country recognizes this gargantuan movement that started as an anti-slavery movement, and then the move for emancipation finally happened, and you got millions of people recognized all over the country as freedmen, and it's captured in the New York Herald. It's captured in the New York Times. Papers are writing about it. It's sweeping the nation. You understand? This is the biggest story in all of media. Nobody was confused on who the freedmen were. Nobody, because the Indians were on the run. You understand? They had their slaves with them in bondage still. There were no Indian freedmen at this time. While the world was like talking about freedmen, I pulled it up on a couple previous shows, the thousands and it's millions and millions of documents, seemingly endless, about freedmen history, capturing what I'm talking about. But like Ibrahim said, they say they don't want to deal with the freedman name. They just want to give it to their cousins who were captured by different nations, right? And then use the story that clearly articulates who the people who were the victims were in this story are. And when they came and conquered their situation, gave them a name, gave them a status, and said these people in this society will be now known as freedmen, which is a glorious title. That's a triumphant title. Like no
Facts.
one else in America has that. No one else in America has defeated private bondage the way we did, by fighting war. We did it the American way. That's how America was born, by fighting their mother Britain in the American Revolution. We did it the American way. We fought a war to become freedmen. You understand? There's a whole pamphlet called "The War and the Freedmen." Go in that archive, that governmentarchive.org. Look it up. We can't do all the work for you. It's called "The War and the Freedmen." We fought that war. We won that status. But instead of linking on to that glorious title, you'll talk about the history, forego that glorious name, give it to another group, and still try to use that same story. That's crazy. That's crazy.
All
And
right, we
then
got it.
you'll see one last thing.
Yeah, bro.
You see the Cherokees and the Indians still using freedmen to this day. You got Maxine Waters, don't even know she's a freedman, champion their issues above her own. And that reflects all through the Twitter sphere, man. That's what y'all doing the same thing.
And we're gonna get to some of that in Jim Clyburn. But Brother Divine said, I know it's really simple, but please put that talking point of quote unquote freedmen doesn't cover all of us, but the acronyms referring to slavery does encapsulate all of us. Who want to take that one?
Well, I'll say this real simply, right? Because it's not even complex. The word freedman encapsulates everything that you're trying to say by saying American descendants of slavery. You're making a sentence out of one word. The one word encapsulates everything that you're trying to say by saying American descendants of slavery, or descendants of American slavery, or Black American descendants of chattel slavery. Whatever you're trying to say, it's all encapsulated in that one word. Nobody had a problem with it until recently, right? This is a word that, whenever people referred to the Freedmen's Bureau, they understood what it meant, right? There was no confusion about that. Freedmen's Bureau, when they mentioned the word Freedmen's Bank, they knew they were talking about African Americans. The word freedmen was referring to African Americans, right? Period. In the story, those people who were formerly slaves, in the story, their descendants, in the story.
Now
right?
look real quick, look what I
That's
have
it.
on the screen. Now this is we went to archive.gov and I punched in Freedmen, and it was endless. I mean, I just kept scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling until I mean, I probably would have sat up all night just scrolling.
And remember, bro, one of the episodes we did, I showed where the United States government said that this freedman history is your heritage. It is your legacy. This is your inheritance. This is who you are. And one of the things that I agree with Noble Drew Ali about was when he said that you are what your forefathers were, without doubt or contradiction. The same way you guys talk about, I'm standing in the shoes of, understand that. Don't try to move the goalposts and change the parameters of the thing because you don't like us. You don't have to like us, but we didn't come up with the term freedman.
That's right.
That's something that existed long before any of us were born. It's something that the United States government was dealing with long before any of us were born and even conceived of, or whatever the case is. So what's happening right now is really, like Brother Ibrahim was saying, it's really like a childish thing that's going on. It's a kid's play. It's like a sandbox thing that's happening. Really,
And as my brother was talking,
arguments.
y'all can see this thing is still scrolling and scrolling with all of this Freedmen,
That's what I'm
this
sitting back laughing
Freeman,
at. I'm like, this
oh,
thing is still going and
it's
going and
still
going.
going. Let me stop sharing.
Yeah.
I think there's an elephant in the room when we have this conversation, like this particular conversation. We keep saying like freedom Native American or Native American freedom. And actually that's an oxymoron, right? You're no more Native American than Thomas Jefferson kids by Sally
Mm,
Hemings was white, right? You
talk to
just you just freedmen who was enslaved, most likely raped and breeded with Native Americans. And the Native Americans lets you know that because they don't call you Native Americans. They acknowledge you as freedmen, and you don't get to
And they have blood
join in
tests.
on any of those benefits, right? So it's just much as a biracial kid during Jim Crow who grows up with black people, lives with black people, has a whole black experience, but then considers himself to be white or other, right? So
Because
like
he
we
has a white
haven't addressed
ancestor.
that. Yeah, we haven't addressed that, right? So these are just freedmen who have different cultures. You know, same lineage, different cultures. Same race, same tribe, right? Just because you put a feather in your head doesn't make you a pretendian. The same way, just because you grew up on a plantation or maybe you smoke out of a teepee or something like that, the culture is a little bit different. Just like Logic is from Chicago, Naheem is from Queens, Ali is from Harlem. I'm from Indianapolis, but we're all freemen. We're not different. Small tweaks in the culture. So somebody who grew up on the Oklahoma reservation, small tweaks in the culture, right? Maybe a little bit more than the four of us have, but still freemen, right? So I think that Native American title is like confusing people. And it also confuses a lot of them. If y'all can recall, there was some freedmen who went up on the Breakfast Club and they were entrenched in Native American history and never talked about, just being African American or freedmen or Black Americans, right? So it's even confusing from them on how they do their politics.
That's right.
Facts. And I'll say this is in terms of, and Logic already pointed this out, but I'll just reiterate it. The reason we're using these names in front of the word freedmen, American freedmen, Cherokee freedmen, Choctaw freedmen, Chickasaw freedmen, Seminole freedmen, Creek freedmen, is because each one of these things are governmental entities. American stands for the United States of America. The Cherokee is its own nation and its own government. The Creek is its own nation with its own government. Same for the Seminoles, same for the Choctaw. So all we're talking about is the people, these particular freemen connected to the American government, these particular freemen connected to the Choctaw government, these particular freemen connected to the Cherokee government, etc. That's all we're saying. But they're all freemen, we're all cousins because we're all people who were related, like Logic already said, and Brother Ibrahim already said, spread out amongst different governments. Same family.
Absolutely. And it really comes to a point that I make often about the lack of understanding of government. That's why you can't see it like that. You don't understand these government moves and these governmental changes. And so, just like they always refer to them together until it's necessary to refer to them separately, they just say the five civilized tribes or the Indian freedmen or the freedmen of the five civilized tribes or and if they want to get specific for specificity, they talk about specific groups of freedmen or specific freedmen that are connected to specific governments, and they do that by way of treaty. That's what creates the parameters of the conversation. Okay, which group of freedmen am I talking to? Cherokees. All right, boom. This is our government's policy dealing with this particular thing. But then we don't look at it the same way when it comes to us. We are all these states. I keep preaching the importance of the understanding of federalism. All these states are governments. We're a union of governments. We are a union of states. That's what federalism is. And so when you are you can even break it down, and they break it down in that history. When you go through it, they got South Carolina freedmen, right? That's just like saying a Creek freedmen, because Creek is a government. The state of South Carolina is a government. Got a governor, got a general assembly, got a budget, got all of that. So if and they have documents upon documents talking about Mississippi freedmen, right? New York freedmen, right? We got Georgia freedmen. We got it all over because it's a government preceding a status talking about those who meet that curriculum in their state. And that's what they're talking about. But when they're referring to all of us federally, because this is federalism again, you got to understand federalism, they call us American freedmen because we are all American. We may be from South Carolina, Mississippi, Louisiana, Georgia, Alabama, wherever, but we are all American. So when the federal policy comes out, it's directing the union of states. And this says this is freedmen all across the union. This is what we're talking about in pertaining to federal legislation towards how y'all deal with y'all freedmen in y'all states. This is the mandate everybody has to follow according to the Constitution. And so that's all that is. And you can't see it if you don't understand government.
Facts. So, I mean, man, y'all just on fire tonight. Family, if y'all haven't hit that like button already, I mean, it don't take much. It don't cost anything. Hit the like button. Share the video out. Subscribe if you are not subscribed to the channel. Hit the little bell icon. Support the platform. Cash App, $ be the power. Go to the websites, usadof.org. You can also make donations there. The United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen is a 501c3. And go to BETHEPOWER.org. Study our 12-point program. Familiarize yourself with it so that it can give you more of a leg to stand on in this political fight as a reparationist. We had somebody say, a person we call Little Miss Mission Drift, say, well, the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen reminds me of the United Daughters of the Confederacy. Well, it should. That was the thinking that we had when we created the name of the organization, that we were going to attack the lost cause teaching, that we were going to start the process of deconfederatization, that we were going to teach the true history, the things that they're trying to remove from the school now under this term CRT.
We don't need babies, God.
We gotta teach the babies, God. Each one teach one, God. You know, today's mathematics is wisdom, God, and wisdom is wise words being spoken by the wise men. Hey, don't get me back in my 5% bag. I was born into this thing. Peace to the gods and the earths. So yeah, you know, that's exactly what we set this thing up for. To reverse the lost cause teachings, to bring you what we're bringing you tonight. Exactly. So, oh man, what dude talk about in the chat? We move away from who? We this be the power. You confusing us with somebody else, bro. I don't know what you talk about. Yo, but
pull up that thing I got in there, man. Pull that joint
I got you, God. Brother Dre, shout out to Brother Dre, man. He said, peace, God. I'm reading the 120. So, you know, everything is moving in alignment. Like, what's that book you put me on to, Logic? The Celestine Prophecies right now. A whole bunch of not coincidences, but happenings. All right, let's get back to it. Blow that up a little bit, bro.
All right, hold up. I'm gonna get it straight for you. Hold on.
Let's get into it. Let's get into it. And after this, we gonna go into old Uncle Ruckus, Clyburn.
All right, yeah, but let me. I gotta do it. I got this bill, and then I gotta put the nail in the coffin with one right behind it. But so before we go to Ruckus,
go ahead, brother.
Let me tie these two things together. Right, this is the 38th Congress, first session, April 12th, 1864. Right, this is before the 13th Amendment. It says in the. Just be patient, family. Y'all need to get this right. In the Senate of the United States, April 12th, 1864, a bill to establish a Bureau of Freedmen. This is before the Freedmen's Bureau. You understand, right? This is what the Senate is introducing.
What year is that?
1864.
1864. It says, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled, that an office is hereby created in the Treasury Department to be called the Bureau of Freedmen, meaning thereby such persons as have become free since the beginning of the present war
Hey,
under the
stop.
care.
Remember,
Yes,
I said
yes,
from 1861, freedmen has started to be made. So they're saying right there from from the beginning of the present war, which starts in 1861.
yes,
Go ahead,
sir.
bro.
That's why I wanted to read it. Like, this is going to prove everything. This is going to be it. This is telling you the origin stories, right, of the freedmen, narrated by the Senate. And then I'm gonna read one from the House right after this. I'm not even gonna read all of it, but it's gonna put the nail in the coffin, right? Under the care of a commissioner with an annual salary of $4,000, which is a mighty sum in the 1800s. $4,000 a year, man, who shall be appointed by the president by and with the advice and consent of the Senate. And there shall be in the bureau of chief clerk, in the bureau of a chief clerk, acting also as dispersing officer. That's the man who pays the money, right? The dispersing officer under bonds to the United States with an annual salary of $2,000, and also such numbers of clerks not exceeding 2 of each class as shall be necessary, who shall be appointed by the Secretary of the Treasury. Section 2. And be it further enacted that the commissioner shall have authority under the direction of the Secretary of the Treasury to create departments of freedmen within the rebel states, so far as the same may be brought under the military power of the United States, and each department shall be under the supervision of an assistant commissioner with an annual salary of $2,000 to be appointed by the Secretary of Treasury and be appointed by the Secretary of the Treasury. And with, did I miss something, Harold? Let me, I skip. Under the states, and each department shall be under the supervision of an assistant commissioner with an annual salary of $2,000 to be appointed by the Secretary of the Treasury, and with authority to appoint local superintendents and clerks so far as the same may be needed at the compensation not exceeding the ordinary rate for similar services, subject in all respects to the approval of the secretary. Now, I got to read this, right? Some of this is dry, but it's a lot of powerful stuff. So just bear with me, family. You need this history, right? Section 3, and be it further enacted that the military commander within any department shall, on the application of the assistant commissioner thereof, supply all needful military support in the discharge of his duties, and any military commander may be appointed assistant commissioner without increase of salary. Right. Section 4, and be it further enacted, the commissioner under the direction of the Secretary of the Treasury shall have the general superintendence of all freedmen throughout the several departments, and it shall be his duty especially to watch over the execution of the laws. Now we're getting into the earliest talkings of protected class in America, right? Watch how they protect the freedmen, or attempt to, right? This is the earliest legislation you got about a protected class being federally formed in America. Execution of all laws, proclamations, and military orders of emancipation, right? He's given the military that power, right? Or in any way concerning freedmen, in any way concerning freedmen. Let me read that for you again. The commissioner, under the direction of the Secretary of the Treasury, shall have the general superintendence of all freedmen throughout the several departments, and it shall be his duty especially to watch over the execution of laws, proclamations, and military orders of emancipation, or in any way concerning the freedmen, and generally by careful regulations in the spirit of the Constitution, to protect these persons in the enjoyment of their rights, to promote their welfare, and to secure to them and their posterity the blessings of liberty. That's all I wanted to do, right? You hear that? You hear that? This is
1864, family.
This is 1864. So some people say, because they didn't get racial here, right? They just keep freedmen. They're spelling out there. You can tell they're excited. So they had to double down. So some people say, well, that could be talking about any old freedman, right? That could be the Indian freedman, right? So I'm gonna stop sharing this and I'm gonna share something else. The House in the same year doubled down and they got it right. The House got it all, the language all the way right, because this was moved, it didn't get passed, right? But this was debated, this was read twice on the floor. But so the Senate got it right. This wasn't specific enough. They was like, well, who the hell are these freedmen? And a lot of y'all asking that right now. So I'm gonna stop sharing this and I'm gonna share something else for you real quick. And I'm only gonna read a little bit of it because it's gonna bring it home real quick.
Tell the fam how they can read that. People are asking for some links in the chat.
Man, I've been telling y'all, over and over, man. Y'all gotta write this shit down, B. Listen, the congress.gov, and you go into the search engine. I'm gonna show y'all in this show. I'm gonna show you exactly how to do it, right? I did it last show. I'm gonna show you exactly how to do it again. So just bear with me. I'm gonna show you both of those amazing infinite resources. But let me get to this real quick so we can move along. And I'm gonna show y'all how to do that. All right. Boom. Let me share this. Is it up?
Yeah.
All right. This is HR House Resolution 51. 38th Congress, first session, right? June 30th, 1864. House of Representatives comes and get it right. Ordered to be printed with Senate's amendments and recommitted to the Select Committee of Freedmen Affairs. Strike out the parts within brackets and insert the parts in italics, right? And so it says an act to establish a Bureau of Freedmen's Affairs, right? So the first Senate bill was just to establish a Bureau of Freedmen. They're getting more specific as they go on. This says to establish a Bureau of Freedmen Affairs. This is the freedmen's business, right? This is Congress talking to you. This is America talking to you. When Congress talks, America talks, right? Or when, rightfully so, when America speaks, Congress speaks. It says, be it enacted by the Senate and House Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled that an office is hereby created in the War Department. So they moved it from the Treasury Department to the War Department to be called the Bureau of Freedmen's Affairs. And the President of the United States is hereby authorized to nominate and with the advice and consent of the Senate to appoint a commissioner of Freedmen Affairs with an annual salary of $4,000. They kept that $4,000, right? They ain't amend that. To whom shall be referred the adjustment and determination under the direction of the Secretary of War, or of all questions arising under this act or under any laws now existing or hereafter to be enacted concerning persons of African descent.
Come on. There
Huh?
it is.
Huh?
There it is.
Who?
African descent.
African descent.
Not Indians.
Indian, not Creek.
Not Indians, not Creek.
African descent.
Not indigenous autochtons.
Not white.
Not ADOS.
Not white.
None of that, right?
ADOS, Beta.
None of that. Right? So people don't like this. And persons who are or shall become free by virtue of any proclamation, law, or military order issued, enacted, or promulgated during the present rebellion, or by virtue of any act of emancipation which shall be enacted by any state for the freedom of such persons held to service or labor within such state, or shall be otherwise service or labor with or be otherwise entitled to their freedom, right? And so like this reads with more specificity, but it's really doubling down. But like that part right there, when they talked about that when I read that stuck, I'm like, ooh, they made sure they got to it early. They was like, who are they talking about? So I could just think like, what were the arguments? Like, so the House had to say, okay, well, this is not specific. We talking about Africans. And they put that in there of persons of African descent, man. It's right there. We didn't make none of this stuff up. Now, show me some legislation from Congress that supersedes any of that and talks about Indians. Talk to me now. How are we appropriating they fight? Like, see, that's ignorance.
That's right. So, I mean, you know, I don't think that anybody would come on here. You know, we invite people to come on Be the Power to make their case. you know, and shout out to BTP Grim in the building. He said they changed it to War Department because basically soldiers were going to carry it out because of the nature of the rebellion. I can't believe people are arguing against the term freedmen. Shameful.
And you know, brother, before you go to Clyburn,
Liburn. Liburn.
maybe we need to bring, because what they
Mhm.
did with the ADOS convention was bring a quote unquote real freedman
A
to
real
speak
freedman.
at their convention, but we also spoke to a quote unquote real freedman,
Hmm.
had correspondence. The woman who helped Ancestry.com to publish and make available to the public the Freedmen's Bureau records. We had actual direct correspondence with her, and
I
so I
can't
don't know if
find
you
the
want to.
email.
You can't find it. All
I
right,
couldn't find it.
all right.
I
Um, but interestingly, and one of the things I said to brother Ibrahim and Naheem earlier is some of the pushback that we're getting about our use of the term freedmen as American freedmen is from other freedmen, meaning it's coming from Chickasaw, Cherokee freedmen people who are having problems with it, who are trying to make the argument that they believe that somehow we're going to cause confusion of some sort by us using the term American freedmen. We're going to somehow cause confusion with whatever it is that they have going on. And so, unfortunately, that's kind of some of the stuff that came back from the woman who we had the correspondence with, and we're trying to actually get Logic said he emailed it, so maybe you can get it. But
all right, all right.
I would like for the family to see that and see that it's not just people from the acronym group, but we're actually starting to get some pushback, um, in which Grim said is shameful, and that's the reason I brought it up, because it is shameful, and I was very shocked by it. Pushback from other freedmen who we would assume, especially the woman who helped Ancestry.com to make the Freedmen's Bureau records available to us. I don't understand why she would think what she was thinking. But here's the email, and bro, you
Oh,
can read it.
yeah, so let me Josh emailed her. Let me see. So Josh,
Shout out
how
to
can we
brother
help
Josh
you?
who ain't with us. That's the man. Y'all don't see Josh on here. He working and he be helping bringing out a lot of this information we bring to
That's
y'all,
right.
man. Shout out
Facts.
to brother
That's right.
Josh.
Shout out to brother Josh in the building. Okay, he says, "Hi, Nika. My name is Josh Gray from the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen. I'm based in the Washington, D.C. area. My brothers and I came across your profile on Twitter as we were trying to find more information on the Cherokee Freedmen and other Freedmen groups fighting for justice from the 5 slaveholding tribes. We would love to talk with you to learn more about the Cherokee Freedmen history and issues faced today to see how we can support in solidarity. I look forward to hearing from you." So, Josh reached out in the spirit of solidarity. Now, look at what this sister said, and it's going to show the toxicity of the hashtag movement in her response as well. She says,
Oh
"Hi,
yeah.
Josh. Thanks for reaching out to me. I am a citizen of the Cherokee Nation who is a Cherokee freedman descendant and also a descendant of those who are documented as quote unquote by blood. I took a look at the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen and United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen's website and have some questions. How the organization was different from Sons and Daughters of the United States Middle Passage, SDSUMP, of which I'm a member. We have absolutely no knowledge of the United, what is it?
United
Excuse me, this
States
no, not
Middle,
the Sons and Daughters of the United States Middle Passage.
the
This was our first
United
time.
States Middle Passage. What
Yeah,
the
I don't know if they're referring to, because now so the United States Middle Passage, to my research, is so the Indians used like the Mississippi River and other waterways to ship slaves to Oklahoma, right back then, and so they called it the U.S. Middle Passage. So if that might be what they're referring to, but I've never heard of this organization. But I do
Oh,
know by my own
okay.
research that they did refer to
Oh,
where the Indians during the Trail of Tears boxed and shipped they Negro slaves to
Oh.
Oklahoma and other territories in slave ships. They called it the U.S. Middle Passage. So being that this person is tied into this whole Indian freedman thing, that's more than likely what they're referring to.
Got it.
Let's finish reading.
Yeah,
She
go ahead.
says, she said also, I have questions about the use of the term freedman. See, that's her issue right there, I believe. That's her issue. She says, when it comes to the descendants of the formerly enslaved in the United States,
So she wants
not,
to use that whole long sentence instead of Freeman. But go ahead.
yeah, right, not the
Yeah.
areas that make up the Indian territory. How do you all plan to control for that when there may be messaging confusion based on the historical use of the term freedman? That's easy, and we just really, literally just broke that down tonight. We
Did you
just
send her this link, Ab?
no, because I couldn't find the email, so I
All right.
couldn't. But I'm gonna send it to her now that I have it. I'm gonna send it to her as soon as this stream is over. Now, then she says further, does your organization have ties to the ADOS movement?
Uh-oh.
No.
Uh-oh.
If so, I'm very aware of the tenets of that movement, but have issues with it. In particular, how monetary compensation is being requested for our ancestors being enslaved, yet there is no call to do the work of tracing one's ancestors who made the compensation possible to begin with. Now, I think she just kind of made that up because we've, rocked
Of course she did.
with that movement and lent some of our scholarship and research to its growth, at one point, but we're not a part of that.
We're not
movement.
a part of it. And she says that she has issues with the tenets of that movement. That's one of the main things that stands out. But
That's
go
a
ahead.
fact. Lastly, the impact of enslavement was well beyond the financial disruption it caused in the lives of our ancestors. In my opinion, the work of reparations must include not just financial considerations, but also address the other disruptions that occurred for our ancestors, be they social, psychological, familial, and more. So obviously, she doesn't really know about the reparationist movement in and of itself, no matter what term people use. She believes that, and that's what happens when you have people just out there saying, cut the check, hashtag cut the check, or 6 quadrillion, 6.2 quadrillion, the 6 quadrillion crew, $151 million per person, right? This whole emphasis gets placed on the fact that the people are indigent as opposed to addressing all of the other harms that were caused that makes the gap what it is in the first place, right? And we broke that down in the prior stream as well. So, this sister basically says that, she has a problem with us using the term freedman, which is crazy because you are a genealogist that helped put the information, the freedman's information on ancestry.com. Nobody wants us to have anything. There's an attack on our people, particularly black men, with the year out from the midterm elections. The attacks are already starting. We're starting to see those tweets that say black women carried the election. So black men, so basically
black women gotta save the republic. Saving the republic
save the republic.
Beginning.
That's right, which is not true. Black men fought in the Civil War,
the American Revolutionary War,
and the War of
1812.
That's right. We were there. What are these people talking about? Right. So there's always this dumping on black American men, right? We got to start with the men in this situation, because when it comes to the women, they're the ones that's being promoted as being the leaders of this political fight, when that, number one, is not the case. And number two, real quick, black men are getting sick and tired of what the Democrats are doing, breaking down the family structure. They can't even say a black father or a black mother. They say black birthing people.
Wow.
Like, men are not to to stand there and take that. That's just they're not going to take that. So
Did he go out?
can
Yeah,
y'all
he
hear
Yeah.
went
me?
out.
No, yeah, you
One,
good
two.
now. You good
Okay.
now.
There you go.
Oh
That's
man.
crazy, man.
Yeah, but it's so did.
But let me say this real quick.
Go ahead, bro.
There are black women who are getting tired of it. Remember, I showed y'all the
That's
tweet
right. That's right.
earlier today, and then the crazy thing is, I was watching a program this afternoon. Anika Noni Rose was on talking about something new that she has going on, and she said the same thing. She said she's tired of, and that black women need to start rejecting this strong black women thing, because what people are actually doing is putting the responsibility of saving America on black women, right? And she's like, that's ridiculous. They're trying to put the weight of this entire country on us, and that's no good, man. We gotta deal with ourselves. We have to take care of ourselves and our families. And I really appreciated that she's not the only one, man. I believe Taraji, I believe I heard Taraji P. Henson talking about the same thing, like this whole strong black woman thing that they trying to put on us, man, is not right. And it's like what they're really trying to do is put the responsibility of the country on black women, and that's not the way to go with this thing at all.
And I like the way you introduced the father tone, because like we can say black men, right? But what does that do? That it singles you out as an individual, right? We need to talk about this thing in all family terms. Like, understand what I'm talking about, family. When we say black sons, you understand? Black brothers, black fathers, black husbands, right? All family connecting terms. See, because you can still talk about your specific situation and make a connection to family. When you say black man, that's one. You single them out, or you single the men out from the family when you do that. Black men. But when you say black son, you got to think about his mom. You got to think about his father. When you say black father, you got to think about the mother and the children, right? And so now it's not easy to attack. See, you can attack black man and just say it's the black man, and you attack him. But when you call him the black father, oh, it softens up a bit, right? When you
Hmm.
call him the
Hmm.
black son, oh, it softens up a bit, right?
Good
And so
point.
when they say black man, it uses as an instrument to dehumanize him or defamiliarize him, right? Not dehumanize him,
Hmm.
basically, but make that member of the family an ostracized target and say this person's the problem. And it takes the family component out of it. The black man, it's the male thing, the black men, right? And so now you
Hmm.
have been impregnated with a poisonous doctrine of feminism, anti-naturalism from the European women who've been working with and trying to steal the minds of our mothers and sisters and daughters ever since we've been here. And they poison you and say it's the man that's the problem. It's the man. It's the man. And they got you right going at war with your own man, the freedman.
That's a
And
fact.
family is only the Freeman family is all we got. And so we have to be careful of these terms that separate us from family. Like the black woman she's the this and she's the that. No, the black woman is the black
The
mother.
black mother.
You
Fact.
understand? She's the black wife. She's the
That's
black
right.
daughter. You
Excellent
understand?
point.
She's the black sister. You understand? And so these
Excellent
are
point.
family connecting terms. We're not taking no
I love
titles
that.
that separate us from family. We're
I
not
love
taking no
that.
title because every one of you is either somebody's daughter, somebody's sister, somebody's wife, right? Somebody's brother,
Somebody's
somebody's
mother.
cousin, somebody's auntie, somebody's grand. You understand? We all family in this thing. You can't, and when you got a movement based on lineage, you got to have talk like that. You got to have language like that. We don't refer to ourselves as the black man. Why would we separate the black man from the family? We don't do that over here. Everything is about the family. Straight
Facts,
like
bro.
that.
You know what? One of the, and I'm sorry, let me just say this real quick. One of the other things that she mentioned that I thought was very important, talking about Anika Noni Rose, was with the whole strong black women thing, is that what that does is it puts them in a vulnerable position to not be heard when things are actually going wrong with them. So, for instance, say a woman is in the hospital and she's dealing with something that's really bothering her, but because everybody is perceiving her as this strong black woman that has the strength of 10 men that can handle anything, that can tolerate and go through anything, they don't hear black women when they're going through stuff. And a lot of times black women can be subject to bad health care treatment within hospital and care facilities because people are looking at them as these strong individuals that can handle anything, that can tolerate pain, that can endure and persevere through whatever. And people ignore black women when they're in trouble and when they're in pain based on this idea that they're so fucking strong and can handle every damn thing.
And
I
that's
thought that
just
was a
not
powerful
true.
point.
It's
What my man from Chicago said, they scared of spiders. So we got to come in. We all got our little roles to play. We just got
That's
our
it's
right.
every
the
and they broke that down. Yeah, go ahead, brother Ibrahim. This is the K part tweet. Black women have been saving this republic since its founding. Ah, that's a lie. Like, why do that? Why separate us? This
Because
is what keeps the gender war going.
he's a part of the. Never mind. Go ahead, Ibrahim. I was getting ready to go
it's
on
a
something
it's a
else.
narrative. It's a narrative that stems from slavery, though. Like you
Hmm.
you you started off as chattel slaves, and even in today's America, black women are being treated like some type of chattel, some type of mule, right? They're a
Hmm.
workforce for the Democratic Party. So when you
Hmm.
embrace that strength, it's kind of like black men that say, like, it's beast mode or I'm a gorilla, right? Basically, I'm a John Henry, I'm superhuman. It's like black women are superhumans that we can ride their bodies into like sustain in America. That's what they was
Yes.
brought here for, right? And it's interesting because on the flip side of that, you have black men during slavery that was buck broken. And now today's how we characterize black men are weak, right? Black women are strong, black men are weak, right? Black men are weak, black men are childish, black men are unfit to lead, and
Hmm.
it's that slave dynamic. And, we sometimes we carry these racist tropes into modern day society. And it's funny because it doesn't matter how derogatory the term is, somehow, just like the word nigga, we find a sense of pride in some of these racist tropes. And we carry it on our chest. Like, look at me, I'm strong, I'm super strong. I'm a strong black woman. I'm a promiscuous black man, I'm a pimp, I'm a gangster. Just some of the ideology that seeps into, you know, 300 years of being in captivity and being miseducated is still part of our miseducation today. And that's why it's so easy to get somebody to cut themselves off from their lineage. Nobody cuts themselves off from their lineage in America. That's a sense of pride. That's a sense of history. You would just so easily give up the term freedman because somebody else is using it. It makes no sense. And that's the problem that we have with the Pan Africanist movement. Like, you just give up your lineage for somebody else's lineage, even when you see them migrating in large numbers over here to benefit off what you made. It just makes no sense, and that's the miseducation of the Negro.
Hey,
Yeah.
you know what's
Did you
funny?
pull up? I don't know if you saw. Did you pull up Cynthia's comment about the like what the hospital?
Yep.
And so and
Oh,
that's
Wait, before y'all go in, let me just say this dude, after that tweet and everybody killing him, his next two tweets, black people save the republic by saving Virginia again. Well,
Oh, so he
it wasn't,
switched up.
he switched up because they start killing him. And
I
like,
know I hit him with something.
yeah,
I know
man,
I
like
hit
get
him with
out of here
but
something.
with that
but
crap.
one second, man. Like Cynthia's comment is important, man. More important
Oh
than
yeah,
that silly nigga, man. She said something, and I like highlighting it. Right? It says,
that's not the
"Oh
one.
yes, that is a regular problem in healthcare until this day. Black women are least likely to be believed we are in pain, or our infant mortality rate is 2.3 times the rate of the white woman." And so we felt so passionately connected to our mothers, sisters, and daughters, and aunties, and whatnot, that we embedded that concept and that idea into our platform as an organization. You understand?
let
We
me
said we
let
said
me
that
add
that
to
the
that
health
though, Logic.
right after this, we said in our platform that the healthcare industry, right, and that the hospital and doctors have been to the black woman what the police departments have been to the black man, and we understood that, and we put that in our platform.
Build off of this though. That goes across socioeconomic. class, right? So these are not just
Facts.
black women with like GEDs, young black teenage
Go ahead,
mothers.
bro.
This also gets into black women with bachelor's, master's, and doctorate degrees. Even black
Multi-millionaires.
nurses that are RNs and nurse practitioners up to black physicians still don't get heard. So it doesn't matter your class status or your level of education, right? When they look at you, they still see somebody who doesn't understand the capacity of what their body could take because they look at
Facts.
you not as a human but as a mule.
Hey,
That's right.
uh, Serena Williams, plenty of paper. Went through that herself with the birth of her child. There was a problem. There was something that went on with her, and that same she became subject to that same situation. Got a
That's right.
white man, got plenty of money, and still in the hospital, not heard. There's another very famous woman, sister, who went through something very similar in the hospital when it came down to, as a matter of fact, Tatiana Ali. Tatiana Ali said the same thing happened to her with her status, whatever money she's got or whatever it is that her net worth is in the hospital. They wasn't hearing her. Same issue. You understand? And she was scared for her life. She talks about this stuff. She talks about it. You know what I'm saying? So it's, to Ibrahim's point, it's not just people who they would consider not, in a certain status, tax bracket, whatever. It's across the board. Go ahead, bro.
So I want to get to. Let me. We going in, and I just want to share something real quick. But I want to hit this before we get off the Clyburn piece. But let me share this real quick, because my bros, we do stout research here at Be the Power, and they brought up this right Freedmen's
Hmm.
Hospital, which is now Howard University Hospital, and it's
Hmm.
been in existence since when? 1862. But
Come
it's
on,
called
man.
Freedmen's Hospital. So what happens when you don't have your own hospitals, and you don't have any control, none whatsoever, over the livelihood of freedmen and people in general? The people who are used to being subjected to harms, mistreatments, and abuses, they these things continue. So you remove Freedmen hospitals. Ali found images of ambulances from the I don't know if that was like the early 1900s or possibly even the 1800s that showed that had Freedmen written on it. The Freedmen ambulance. We have to bring
Facts.
all of these things back.
Yep.
This is why that is point 10 in our political program. Absorb that. Like I said, go to those 12 points, family. Absorb that information because we need to
Yo,
absorb it.
brother. See, people don't even understand. You threw something so important out when you said the Freedman ambulance. That's such a important detail that could just be rolled over like, oh man, that's no. Listen, we're talking about protect. Some people had a problem with saying I don't want to. I don't want to be equal with no white man. I don't want to be equal here to equal. Nah, now listen, you don't understand what we're talking about. Something different, equal to our equity. We're talking about equal to what is owed. And guess what? If you're not a freedman, whose ambulance is that? It ain't for you. So you're talking about a dedicated hospital, a dedicated ambulance service. Like you're talking about the most exclusive access to services that anyone ever had. You understand? That's why this thing has to be centered and anchored into Freedman history and Freedman policy. We don't need to create nothing new. So we don't want to give America no excuse on saying, well, we don't want to create no new no, these aren't new programs. These are congressional commitments and government promises that have been long overdue and long denied and reneged on a long time ago. And we demand justice for what the government has already promised us. These are old promises. We don't need nothing new. If we just got everything we were supposed to get, and if we'd fight for everything that our ancestors should get, you would see what type of America that you could live in. You want to talk about the most elite of the elite? That's who you would be. But don't try to create something else. Just fight for what they was fighting for. They knew what this American thing was about. You don't
That's
know
right.
like that. You don't know like them freedmen knew, them first sets of freedmen. You don't know like them. So just use what they did as a blueprint, use our energy, our opportunity, and our space in today's time to get it done. Those same things. Wouldn't you love to have a freedmen's town with a freedmen's hospital and a freedmen's ambulance with a freedman fire chief and a freedman police sheriff and a freedman mayor and a freedman governor? Wouldn't you love to live in a world like that? Come
That's
on,
right.
man.
That's
So
right.
so we had Freedmen's Banks, we had Freedmen Hospitals. You got Homer G. Phillips that was in St. Louis. Like these institutions wasn't on reservations, right? You had the Freedmen's Hospital
That's
that was
that's
in
right.
Chocolate City.
That's
You know,
right.
none of
That's
this
right.
stuff
Talk
was
to
on
him, Ibrahim.
reservation. And it's also interesting because this narrative about black people being better caretakers, this is a fact. When you read medical apartheid, they tell you about black midwives on the plantation. And black midwives had a more success rate than black physicians. Really, they was just quacks because you only did like 6 months of schooling back then. But black midwives had a more successful rate in delivering child, and women had less complications as well. But because black midwives wasn't certified physicians, because you had to go to schooling, and black women couldn't go to schooling at that time, they just wrote it off as it was just luck. So we've always gotten better care when we went to our own institutions and when our own
Hmm.
people have handled us. And that's also interesting when you think about this quote unquote melting pot of America. As they bring over more African immigrants, more Caribbean immigrants, more Indian from the country India, doctors in China and Japan, our maternal health care doesn't get better as far as it goes with our woman. They just get acclimated in the whiteness and we get the same treatment because they too have the white supremacist framing that sees us as mule. So we need less, medical treatment, and less um, medication that will alleviate our pain. And just the medical treatment is just horrendous still. So, that's just something to think about when you think about melanin and how brown is better than white.
Indeed. So, speaking of pain alleviation, right? Qualified immunity. We're going to pull up our sister Shayna from Atlanta's tweet. She tagged us earlier, and the brothers and I, we jumped on it. And I remembered,
This is the Clyburn tweet.
yep, this the Clyburn tweet.
Okay.
But I'm going to go,
Yeah.
before I go there, I want to pull up this other tweet by Clyburn, right? That's why I started with qualified immunity. The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is one. The other one, I believe, was HR 1. I think that had qualified immunity in it, if I'm not mistaken. They were trying to uh, add that into the bill because qualified immunity is a way to protect police officers, basically protect law enforcement from their vicious and evil ways and how they treat our people. So let's go to Clyburn here. Let's see what he has to say about qualified immunity real quick, y'all.
No, I don't think so. Remember what I said at the outset. Qualified, according to Black's Law Dictionary, which I have looked up, says partial. Qualified means partial. It does not mean absolute. We are treating it as if it means absolute. So I hope that the committee will work on that to give a good, clear definition of what it's all about. And so that's all I've ever said. And I did say at one point, a half loaf is better than no loaf at all. Now, the full loaf would be to get rid of qualified immunity. No loaf would be to keep it. So what's the half loaf? Somewhere between getting rid of it and keeping it.
so
No, I don't think
so
so.
basically
Remember
what he's saying is that if qualified immunity is the thing that is going to stop this bill for police reform of taking place, then let's kill the one thing that would stop the cops from being protected from basically committing extrajudicial killing. They the jury, the judge, jury, and the executioner. They hold that power within their hands. And this is what qualified immunity basically is. It is protecting white supremacy. It's something that has always been there. And that was Clyburn's take on it. Like, well, let's give up the thing that's going to protect Black Americans who are disproportionately targeted by the police so we could pass the rest of it. Remember when I went at Roland Martin and he had Greg Carr on, and Greg Carr said, yeah, the bill is going to have one less tooth than it had yesterday, but we're still going to have a bill, right? So the politicians at the top, I believe, the white supremacists like Jim Crow Joe Biden, they say a thing, they pass it on to another lower level politician like Clyburn, who has his grips on the minds of the Black electorate, particularly in South Carolina, and those that listen to party Democratic politics. Then they tap their own media arm, which is people like Roland Martin. And they get the rest of the people that might not necessarily listen to C-SPAN all the time, et cetera, et cetera. And that's how they work the masses to vote against the very things that would help them. So let's pull up this tweet by our sister Shayna from out of Atlanta. Is this, when it comes to us, no. But when it comes to everybody else, well, let's see. So Sister Shayna said, shaking my head, Clyburn is openly supporting paying reparations to the descendants of the people who were paid by his home state to capture his descendants during Stonewall's Rebellion in 1739. And I should have put the audio. Matter of fact, let me stop sharing this so I could put the audio on. Let's listen a little bit to what Clyburn had to say. And, we could get into what Sister Shayna captioned in that tweet. Let's hear what this guy has to say.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to call upon this august body for a favorable vote on H.R. 1619. That's a very interesting number for this legislation. This legislation known as the Catawba Indian Nations Lands Act. The Catawba Indian Nation Lands Act clarifies that the Catawba Indian Nation is subject to the well-established rules and regulations of the Indian Game and Regulatory Act on their modern and ancestral lands in the state of North Carolina. This legislation will clarify the tribe's 1993 Land Claims Settlement Act and reaffirm recent action taken by the Department of Interior to take land into trust for the tribe. Most importantly, this bipartisan legislation is a very significant step towards rectifying historic injustices that have been perpetrated against the Catawba Indian Nation. Like in many other instances of current effects of historical inequities, the Catawba Nation experiences high unemployment and poverty rates, causing many of its citizens to rely upon federal and state governments for basic social service. The enactment of this legislation is critical to helping the Catawba Indian Nation secure economic self-sufficiency as Congress originally intended when it passed the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act of 1988. I respectfully ask my colleagues for a favorable vote on this act, and I yield.
So basically, we just heard this guy get up there, and let me share this real quick. I'm not even going to read it. I just want to show the people the headline. Right when they passed the COVID bills, look, yeah, can y'all read that? Let me
Yep,
blow that
can
up a
see
little
it.
bit. Senate passes largest investment in Native programs in history, more than $31 billion heading to Native communities. It's always everything for everybody else. These feckless, weak. How do you stand up there
Look at
as a black man, descendant of hold on, bro, descendant of freedmen, begging your colleagues to vote for other people's stuff while the people in South Carolina are living in abject poverty? Your district, Clyburn, your district has people, black people, freedmen, American freedmen, living in abject poverty. What the hell is wrong with these people? Go ahead, bro.
Let's give
That
those
put me
numbers.
on.
hold
Let's
on,
give
hold on.
those numbers of his district.
I do want to make a put. This is going to be real quick before y'all go. I wanted you to leave that up. It was very important that people see that. That said, can you pull it that screen right back up? The Bureau of Freedmen Affairs. I
Damn,
just was reading legislation about a Bureau of Indian Affairs, right? I just showed y'all legislation talking about a Bureau of Freedmen's Affairs. Do
Which is
y'all not?
something that we had before the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Go ahead.
Right. Well, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, not that we gotta. That's different, right? Because the war powers created to deal with them, but in a different way. It's not the Bureau of Indian Affairs that we have right now. This one, yes, but some people are trying to throw some bullshit out there, right? But like the Committee on Indian Affairs, you see all this government language giving them their status and their category. I'm trying to show y'all we had the same exact stuff, and I already showed it to you in legislation of old. The Committee on Indian Affairs. I showed you on the other program the Committee of Freedmen Affairs, where the Freedmen from South Carolina, House Representative Joseph H. Rainey was the chairperson of that committee. We had all the same stuff, right? The Freedmen family, right? And the difference between us is we had direct representation of our Freedmen class, while the Cherokees had to go through the Indians. See, the Indians, not the Cherokees, but the 5 civilized tribes Freedmen had to go through
5 slaveholding tribes.
Slaveholders, the 5, you know what I mean? They had to go through the Indian side. See, the Indian freedmen is 2 different statuses, right? But the freedmen in the Indian group, right? Well, it's 2 different categories and statuses, right? But the freedmen of the Indian governments had to go through those different people to get to their Freedmen Affairs, right? They didn't get to have their own representatives. The tribunals decided who was going to represent the tribe in the Indian Affairs, and they didn't. The Freedmen Affairs was different. That was ran by us. So it's a different government relationship, and it all goes back to your understanding what's going on in the governments at this time, so you can really understand the impact of what was going on. We had all the same things, and it's still able to be enacted right now to this day, because those people are still here in America and they're us.
Clyburn's district is somewhere between 55 and 57% black freedmen, mostly made up of freedmen, right? And then the rest is basically white, over 30-some% white. He has a nominal amount of Native Americans in his district. When it comes to the poverty rate of District 6, which is Clyburn's district, it's over 24% poverty rate. But for blacks, it's over 60%, right? So he's advocating on behalf of a nominal amount of people in his district, while most of his voter base is freedmen who vote for him year after election after election after election. And he
Is
gives
this
you
what
nothing.
you have in the inbox, Ibrahim?
Yeah, that's
I'm
the poverty rate. Think about it like this. he shoots down qualified immunity after half the world is advocating, politically for blacks to get some type of relief. But then he goes on to mainstream media after being called the kingmaker, after handing South Carolina over to Joe Biden when Joe Biden is not even in the top 3. And then he says, I don't want nothing, right? Being after he was asked by, I believe it was Stephanopoulos, he said, I don't want anything. You know what I'm saying? I'm just happy to get boss, back in the big house. I don't want anything from my people. But then you can show up at the halls of Congress and advocate on behalf of a nominal amount of people in your voter base. And these are the people that's ahead of the CBC, right? It's a joke.
That's right. That's right. So, you look at a nation of Indians that enslaved our ancestors in South Carolina. We was looking this stuff up earlier today, and it's pitiful, man. This is why we have to become the power. This is exactly why. And I'm I'm not going to get deep into some things right now about certain things and certain people. I'm gonna just be reserved until the appropriate time. But being in this political space takes a specific type of headspace, and it takes a specific type of aura and fearlessness. And in order to beat these people, these establishment people, we have to make sure that we are moving in the spirit of the freedmen. And one day soon, we're going to get into some of these things, because I know some people are looking and they're probably asking certain questions that I'm not going to get into right now. And there's a reason behind everything. There's a reason behind everything. But so, Brother Logic, you have something in the back channel. What is this you have pulled up?
So now, right?
We can't see that though.
I'm gonna blow it up for you. Don't worry about it, right? I'm gonna bring it up, man. I wanted to pull this up because when you was showing them clips of Clyburn, and we're talking about the climate of policing and the murders and all that, and you're talking about qualified immunity, right? Yeah, is that better? Let me know if I need to blow it up some more.
It's all right. You could blow it up some more though. Yeah, that's much better. That's much better.
All right. So what does it say? This is this sends you to another site, but it's off of mapping police violence. I'll just talk about police violence real quick and what Clyburn is talking about in his position with qualified immunity. So I went into this filter. I want to show you something. We do good research here. This is a good source. Write this down, right? Police are killing at rates similar to past years. So I go into this filter. I put in black. I put in unarmed, right? States, and boom. And you can go in here and see, was the officer charged or anything like that, right? I'm going to show you something too, right? So now here, I went unarmed, right? Unarmed, did not have a weapon. That's what this says here. Unarmed, did not have a weapon. They killed 11 people this year so far, right? Down there, 11 from 2013 up to here, right? Unarmed, no weapon, right? Now look, this is an interesting alleged weapon. Let's take away unarmed. Alleged weapon, that means anything like, oh, he had a gun, let's kill him, right? So alleged arm. So basically, all they hearsay, it jumped all the way up to 125.
Damn.
It jumped from 11 to 125. And so this is the type of stuff. This is a good website. I pulled it up here before. They got new additions. We can go like how many officers were charged. Take that off and say who was not so how many of them went without anyone being charged. Now this is the filter on. Look, didn't move, did it?
Nope. That's
Did
crazy.
nobody get charged, family?
That's
This is
crazy.
insane. This is insane. And so this is the impact of qualified immunity and just the whole way like the police agencies get cover for wrongdoing. I just wanted to show y'all that because that's crazy. Play with that, like it's called Mapping Police Violence, and it got nice updates. But like, isn't that something? It didn't even move from unarmed, right? It was only 11. Alleged armed, you can just say he got a gun. 125. And then how many cops were actually charged in those killings and convicted? And that was just from 2013 to 2015. Not a one. That's crazy. That's this qualified immunity that he's talking about. He want to keep half the loaf. Let's just keep half of that
Let's
loaf.
just keep
Half the loaf.
We don't.
Half the loaf.
Hey, make sure the butter is spread on it. You know we like them buttered.
Yeah, because if you get rid of the loaf, where are you gonna get his butter from,
You
right?
know?
And so people like Clyburn represent an old compromised guard of our political representatives, and they have to go, right? And so in order to be what we need the spirit of them old radical Republicans of the abolitionist day, right? Not like, don't get that confused with the Confederate Republicans.
Neo-Confederate.
That's not the neo-Confederates are the Republicans. That's not the same thing. Well, I'm talking about a radical ideology of justice, freedom, and equality. You know what I'm saying? So when a group of representatives who are as bold and committed as the abolitionists were, as like John Brown was in his movement of anti-slavery. So these reparationists, we don't have them. We have to get our reparationists into the democratic representative spheres, starting from the state level and moving forward, family, so that we can battle people like Clyburn, because he needs opposition at home first and foremost. He needs to be able to deal. If we could get him out of here now, great. But who's going to replace him? A younger, better version of Clyburn? Like, that's not what we need. We need to build a reparationist who is rooted in family and who is rooted in the mission and understands what needs to be done to give him problems. And we need to create a caucus of reparationists at the General Assembly level so that they can stand on Clyburn's neck. Because if all of his state senators and state reps are fighting him, and again, he has to yield to that pressure. And we need to be on the governor of South Carolina's neck. You understand? If we can get a reparationist governor in South Carolina, now Clyburn has to say, "Oh, Mr. Governor, how can I help the state of South Carolina?" And the governor tell him, "This is what we need you doing in Congress," because he's the chief executive officer of the state. He's your state president. And so you need to get a governor. You need to get some reparationists. Like, can you get a reparationist governor? And don't you think if you had a reparations governor tearing Clyburn butt up from that state capitol, like, I don't know what Clyburn doing up there in Washington, but the people need to get him up out of here. Don't you think that would have a powerful impact? We need to understand federalism and understand the magnificence of state power and how it can be used, right, strategically. Get that General Assembly, say the representatives of the various districts and senatorial districts of the state don't support Clyburn. Don't you know how powerful that would be? Come on now. We got to think power.
I want to pull this article up that Ali has, but I want to say to the sisters out there, you know, I've been putting this call out for months. We want to get the sisters going on the platform as well. If you are interested in hosting a segment on Be the Power with just the sisters, we're looking for balance, of course. We want to show that our sisters are on the same page as we are as well, and because we need that representation is definitely needed. Y'all get up with me. Let's start putting some panel discussions together. And again, we trying to grow this thing to whereas we could, at the least, I don't even want to say at the least, right? Where we can become our own TYT, where we can start talking news, where we can like really expand this platform out so that those of us that are going to run for office don't have to be sitting up here every single Tuesday and Thursday. They get to focus on that. Whatever the office may be, they get to focus on it, right? And then we can have the people that's doing the news and the discussions. Of course, we're going to still come on and have discussions and break things down, et cetera, et cetera. But sisters, we would love for y'all to come on and go on BTP Riri said, let's do it. Hit us up. Y'all know how to contact us on Twitter. Y'all know how to contact us on Facebook. The Gmail is btplivecast@gmail.com. The organization's email is freedmen@usadof.org. That's freedmen@usadof.org. So Sister Cynthia says she's down. Sister Antonia said that's great. So okay, let's pull this up, and then we're gonna probably close out after this. Yeah, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, now I wanted you to show it while he was talking because it kind of like it just it kind of went along with what he was talking about in terms of the reports of police killings. This is very interesting. More than half of United States police killings are mislabeled or not reported at all. See, and so even with the numbers that we wind up getting, it's still not really an accurate assessment of what's actually taking place. And so that limited immunity that he's talking about, qualified immunity, being limited immunity, okay, fine. They may be limited. Some of them can still be sued. We just saw the man incarcerated for the murder of George Floyd. They can be incarcerated, they can be prosecuted, and some of them can still be sued or whatever. But I think that whatever limited immunity that they have should be taken away from anybody found to be liable for criminal activities. I just don't. I mean, I don't know, man. Maybe that is the threshold. Maybe once they're found guilty, they can then be sued or whatever. I don't know, but at the to me, to settle this, it would put a lot of pressure on people to be, if they're going to be police officers, then they should be good police officers, because the consequence for being a criminal pretending to be a cop would be too great.
That's right.
Wasn't the young brother that was murdered by the police in Sacramento, his alleged weapon was a cell phone? I believe Amadou Diallo's was the same thing. And then you had the other shooting in New York with the black man who had left his it was the day before his wedding, and they had shot the car up like
Sean Bell,
because his weapon was allegedly and nothing was ever found. So sometimes it could just be, the officer had blood in his eyes and he seen the wrong thing.
Facts.
Yep.
That's facts.
Let me say something right here. Like we gotta, we do education on Be the Power, and I just gotta give some common sense education to the confusion in the chat. It says so Clyburn's role has absolutely no connection to the state government. And trust me, Clyburn has no qualms with saying that. I don't care what he say. The people in Washington, D.C. didn't install him into the Senate. The people of the state of South Carolina did. And that's the strongest connection that you need. But if what you don't understand is how state power connects, Clyburn don't have to talk about his connection with the state. He represents the state. They call him the gentleman from the state of South Carolina when he speaks in the Senate. You understand? So he's connected, whether he got qualms with saying it or not, or if you can understand it or not. The people of South Carolina installed him into office. That is the ultimate connection.
Facts.
So if he's not doing things for the state, then he's an ultimate failure, and they need to get rid of him. You understand? That's how this thing works. And it's only the ignorance of democratic representative politics that have situations like this continue to manifest and be sustained for long periods of time. People saying the state don't have nothing to do with the federal government, and they don't see the connection. Clyburn can't get to the Capitol building without the state sending him there. What kind of connection do you need to have some type of political consequence for somebody who doesn't do what you tell them to do or isn't representing the state properly? You sent them there to represent the people of South Carolina. Now, you may have forgotten that, and he may have forgotten that, but we're teaching that right here on Be the Power. And if y'all, the wheel, it can produce some state power. I said, look at the potential of political leverage and how you want to bring You want to bring attention to an issue, have the governor speak out on it. Guess who can call all the state media and all the attention? Who can call the president on the phone quicker than anyone else in the state? Your governor can. So if the governor was a reparationist, and this is the power of the possibilities of putting real, true representation in office, and you had a real reparationist running the governor's office in the state of South Carolina, he can just say Clyburn is a failure and the people of South Carolina shouldn't support him. Do you know the type of impact that would have? Come on, like y'all gotta just get your head and like you gotta think government. I don't know what y'all need to do to understand how this game is played, but that's how this works. Clyburn is just a product of bad politics. And you just have to correct that at the home level because he doesn't just manifest in Washington. He didn't wake up one day in Washington. I'm not connected to the state of California. How the hell did you get there? You're there because people vote for you, and you stay an incumbent because people continue to vote for you, and nobody turns out on off cycles, and nobody focuses on congressional elections on that ticket because there's no good voter education programs going on. There's no true galvanizing of reparationists going on. You ain't hived the bees enough yet, but everybody always got something to say why something can't be done, but don't want to bring to the table how you get it done. Sad.
Indeed, indeed. So look, family, we came, we saw, we conquered. Like we always do. Be the power is on deck. The United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen is on deck. United Sons and Daughters, ladies and daughters. So let me make another announcement. We are doing John Brown Abolitionist by David S. Reynolds, the man who killed slavery, sparked the Civil War, and seeded civil rights, December 2nd. Let's, get into it now. Start reading this book right now. We are we're laying the concrete for Freedman history so that we could solidify ourselves in this day and time and in moving forward. And it starts with an understanding of the history in a way that we have not necessarily looked at through the lens of being a freedman. When you look at it through this lens, then it makes a little more sense. It becomes a little more digestible. You gain a better understanding of what to do as you move forward politically. So December 2nd, family. Yeah, let me pull this up from Ali real quick.
Oh, my bad, man. I didn't even know I was Shannon. But look, this is from Sister Shayna's tweet. And when she was talking about the fact that these Catawba people that he's advocating for actually own slaves, right? And let me just read kind of the last sentence in this report from William Bull regarding the Stono Rebellion. He's he says it was the opinion of His Majesty's Council with several other gentlemen that one of the most effectual means that could be used at present to prevent such desertion of our Negroes is to encourage some Indians by a suitable reward to pursue and, if possible, to bring back the deserters. And while the Indians are thus employed, they would be in the way ready to intercept others that might attempt to follow. And I have sent for the chiefs of the Chickasaws living at New Windsor and the Choctaw Indians. The Catawba. I'm sorry, Catawba. That thing threw me off. Living in New Windsor and the Catawba Indians for that purpose. If you got lost, he's talking about using them to intercept any Negroes that desert. I'm assuming slaveholders trying to seek freedom, and so they were using these uh, Chickasaws and the Catawba Indians to go and be slave catchers and bring these so-called Negroes back to the Europeans. Also, I just wanted to show. I kind of sent her um, a piece to confirm the slave part. So let me just look at that real quick. It's actually highlighted, so we don't even have to read the whole thing. There was a piece called "The Slaveholding Catawbas" by a woman named Martha Bentley, which was for the South Carolina Historical Magazine, and it says here that the Indians went through some stuff with white people. This is what they're basically saying up top with the Europeans. And then it says, given this history, it may be surprising that the Catawba in the late years of the antebellum period adopted the white practice of owning black slaves. So again, these are former slaveholders. Some of these people, I'm not going to say all of them were, some of these people, former slaveholders that this Freedmen is advocating for. So I just wanted to add that, and that's it for me, brother. I'm done for the night.
Indeed. So look,
Reminds you of Malcolm X, the house Negro or the field Negro. You know, we sick, boss.
facts.
Yes.
We sick.
We sick. So I'm about to get up
As
off
people
here. We
really
about to get up off
underestimate.
here, man.
Yeah,
No, go ahead, bro.
yeah. I was just saying, like, before we go, just don't underestimate these old political warriors like Clyburn. He's not there and doing what he's been doing this long for no reason. You can sit back and say, he's this and he's that, but the fact of the matter is he's like, whether he's beneficial to us or not, he had understood how to play the game a long time ago, and that's why he successfully continues to win that seat. And so that has not been for our benefit in as of late. But remember how Clyburn got his rise through civil rights justice work. So he was compromised somewhere along the way. You understand? But you got to understand why he's so juiced up and why he is where he's at now. You got to understand how he got there. A lot of people skip the how you got there story and think that, just if I say some things about Clyburn, I can get him out of there. He ain't nobody. He ain't done nothing for the state. Oh, he's doing something. It may not be what you want him to do because we haven't galvanized our political footing the way we need to. And politics is a science of who gets what, when, where, and how. And Clyburn, a man who's hooked on power, so he got to move where power is moving. And so because enough political efforts haven't been put into organizing around Freedmen activism and political action, we're not getting the desired results. And so, but don't think that he's not a formidable adversary just because of his connections and relationships alone make him a problem. His access to money and support by the Democrat machine is a problem. He's very see, we get into this movement. A lot of people I see that they got it. They did that with Cobra. They did it with NARC. They did it with Biden. They did it with a lot of different people. Like, oh, he ain't nothing anyway. That whole you haven't done nothing. These people are proven. They're on the opposite side of what we want, but they're proven that they willing to grind to get it and work to get it and organize to get it. You got to outwork them. They are outworking you. So you can sit around and grind and complain, but you got to do something. You have to do something.
His daughter.
He's
groomed his daughter to give us another 50 years of that. After he's gone, his legacy will continue. We're gonna get our politics together.
That's right, and the right people, and the right people running against him. Y'all know who he reminds me of, though?
Level.
This is who he reminds me of.
Could white folks ain't that bad. Could look at that. I'm so happy. I just do my happy dance.
That's who he reminds me of.
Man, so, that's Al Sharpton right there, man. That's who I think of.
Let me pull this comment up. This is the last comment. Now, we got to create a Gen Z Be the Power panel as well, so folks like me can attract Gen Z Freedmen to the movement. Hit me and we could talk. Like, everything starts with the education first. A lot of people, they try to come on and interject. Y'all should do this. Y'all should do that. As if we haven't been studying this stuff. I mean, we've been studying most of this stuff for years. We have it refined now. And then we could have that panel. People got to be on the same page. We don't want to just put something together where people are all over the place. And then we come on after that. And then it seems like we're contradicting what the quote unquote Gen Z people are saying. We just got to get on the same page first.
We already had somebody that spoke to the youth. 40 acres in a Tesla.
The young guy, 40 acres in the Tesla. So look, fam, we got to get up off here, man. Thank you all for tuning in. We will be back next week. Don't forget, sisters, hit us up. I'll leave you all with the motto of the platform, which is don't just fight the power, become the power. And then and only then will you have the power to make a change. And with that, I say peace.